Thank you, Micah. God is in control. That'll be a theme that we talk about today. If you have your Bibles, go ahead and turn to the book of Exodus chapter 32. We find the Israelites having departed Egypt, freed from slavery, having made the journey from Egypt, now at the base of the Mount of Sinai. Moses has gone up, and he is meeting with the Lord, and the people are down at the base of the mountain. The interesting thing about this book of Exodus, about this passage, about the passages that surround this, is that it's very relevant to our graduates today, but it's also relevant to all of us. Because all of us can relate to what the Israelites are going through. They are not yet arrived at their destination. They're not where they're going to be going. They're not finished yet, but they're not where they were. They're in this limbo of having to work through a journey to get to the place where God finally wanted them. And as they did that, they faced numerous challenges. But time and time again, God proved himself in control. And yet, here we find the Israelites at the base of the mountain. And they face a danger. A danger that you will face as graduates, the dangers that we face every day in our lives. And that danger is forgetting who God is and why we're there in the first place. If you will, read with me Exodus chapter 32, verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So Aaron said to them, "Take off the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, your sons and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Verse 7, And the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, for your people who you have brought up out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I have commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it, and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen these people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may be burned hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation of you.'" So here the Israelites are, at the base of the mountain. Now, this is Exodus chapter 32. Remember all the things that have happened up until this point. In the beginning of Exodus, Moses is called and he goes to deliver the people. We have already seen the 10 plagues. We've already seen the Israelites leave Egypt. They've already walked across the sea on dry land. They've already seen in chapter 15, 16, and 17, they complained to Moses about their circumstances, and every single time God provided. They've seen the pillar of fire and the cloud of smoke that has preceded them and led them where they're going, and now they're simply waiting for what God's going to do next. And as Moses is meeting with God, the people begin to stir. Graduates, as you go from high school into the next years of your life, studies say that adolescence is extending. So technically, people are saying now that we don't really reach full adulthood till like 26. So parents, remind them of that next time they think they know everything. Kidding, don't do that. You're entering a time of your life where we as a church lose you. Statistics show that almost 90% of high schoolers who are in church, when they leave high school and go to college, they never come back. Not to the church they're from or any church. And so the reason this is happening, I believe, is that so many are doing exactly what the Israelites did. They got to the base of the mountain and that limbo period, and they began to sit and wait and get distracted. And they lost focus on why they were there in the first place. Your parents have spent 18 to 19 years raising you. They have brought you to church. They have taught you the concepts of what it means to be a Christian and to follow God. And all of that leads up to the moment you enter adulthood and become your own person. And the hope is that you will remember and be focused on what they taught you. Because you can make all the decisions in the world about your career, about your family, about your future. But if you do not focus on the basis for those decisions as God Almighty, then our hearts will be broken. Every day we as adults face the decision, do we continue to pursue God or do we focus on the circumstances around us? Where is our faith based? Where is our focus placed? We see the Israelites focused on a single man. And because this single man is no longer around, well, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Like those bad Israelites. Everybody's thinking, oh, those bad Israelites. How dare they? Y'all ain't been to a Baptist church when the pastor's out of town. You haven't been in a church where a pastor has left because he's mad at the church and didn't get his way. And people just stopped coming because the pastor wasn't there anymore. Or they started going to a church down the street because that's where the new pastor was. You ain't been in a business where the CEO resigns and the business goes bankrupt. People's focus gets put on a man and rather not why the reason they are there and who brought them there. Your parents have done a wonderful job raising you. I know all three of you well enough to know that your parents have done a great job. Parents, when we clap later for the graduates, we're clapping for you. Because I tell the youth this, because I'm a parent now, I can say this. You know, it was always a mystery to me how my parents thought they knew so much and now they thought they knew. I came to the realization, we don't know what we're doing. The oldest child is the experiment. The middle child is the adjustment. And the baby is just, I don't know anymore. I got 3. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just throwing stuff out there hoping it sticks. Because, and here's the fear, teenagers, graduates. Here's the fear. Every parent in here might not admit it, but everyone knows it in their heart. What happens with your life from now until the time you die or your parents die, their parents will carry your success and your failures as a product of what they have done over the last 18 years. And if you fail, they fail. If you hurt, they hurt. And so their sense of urgency to teach you the ways to survive in this world, to live and be obedient to God, to put your focus on the right place. For you, 18 years is a short time. Or it's a long time, excuse me. For you, 18 years feels like a long time. God, it's happening. Finally. For your parents, 18 years flew by. We have such a small window to protect, to grow, to cultivate our children. We have such a small window to protect, to cultivate, to grow those in our care as church leaders, as a church. We dare not waste a moment. We must have our focus where it belongs. We are looking at everything that is and not what was and what will be. The Israelites found themselves without their leader at the base of a mountain just waiting. When you enter your college campuses, Micah, it'll be a little different for you because you're going to a Christian campus, but it's still going to challenge you. Your focus is going to be everywhere. And believe it or not, just because you're going to a Christian college does not mean there's not going to be ungodly things happening. But you that are going to non-Christian, you're going to walk in the classroom and you're going to have professors that are going to try to twist your beliefs every which way. They're going to try to destroy what you believe. And your focus better be on what God has done and what God has promised. Because if your focus is anywhere else, you'll start to get distracted and led astray. Put your focus where it belongs. Remember the lessons you've been taught. Remember your youth pastors. Remember your pastors. Remember the Sunday school teachers. Remember the parents' words of advice through the years. Remember all that they've invested to get you to this point. Don't look at the hardships of college. Don't look at the distractions of college. This is a temporary transition period. It's 4 years, maybe 2, depending on what you're going for. And then you'll enter the real world, and you better believe that the devil is after whatever he can do to mess you up in the next 4 years, to get you off the rails. Not only did the Israelites lose focus, they lost perspective. They forgot why they were doing what they were doing. They forgot what they were following. They weren't just following some strange dude that showed up one day. He was a well-known guy. You know the story of Moses. He was a Hebrew raised in the Egyptian royalty. He was exiled because he killed someone to protect the Hebrew. And then he comes back called by God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Names that the Israelite people knew and had held onto. They knew the promise that God had made. They knew the promise that Abraham's God had made to him to make him the father of many nations, to give him a promised land, to rescue them and give them a nation. They knew that they had seen these miracles. They knew that they had crossed the Red Sea on dry land. They knew about water from heaven. From a rock. They knew about manna from heaven. They knew all these things. And yet, they forgot why they were there. Because Mount Sinai was never the destination. It was a stopping. It was a rest stop. I was told this the other day that, if in case anybody was wondering, that our transportation committee did go down and look at the bus, and they bought it. And so we'll have a bus to take our youth to camp. But it doesn't matter if you have a bus or 6 vans or, hitchhiking it. At some point in time, as a youth pastor, if you're transporting a load of youth somewhere, you're going to have to make some frequent stops so people can go to the bathroom. And if you're lucky, there'll be a nice rest stop nearby you can pull off. And everybody can get out, go to the bathroom, come back and get in and go home. If you're really lucky, you will never drive off and leave a student behind. And if you're really, really lucky, you'll never be the student that got left behind. Rest stops were cool. Look at this, all this stuff, like all this open space. We've been on a bus for 4 hours. What's over here? What's over there? Wait a minute, where's my bus? Oh. See, See, the problem is you forget the rest stop isn't the destination. There's something better waiting for you at the end. This is simply a place to stop, get instructions, get rest, get re-equipped, and leave back out, refreshed and renewed. The Israelites forgot that God had made a promise and they were on their way to somewhere better. But because they lost perspective, because they lost their focus, they thought, hey, this is it. Let's do something wild here. We don't have a leader anymore, so let's find some gods we can follow. Let's find some gods we can see. Graduates, as you go through the next 4 years of your life, as you transition from adolescence into adulthood, into your future life, college is not the destination. Your first job won't be the destination. Your first home won't be the destination. You're working towards something greater that God has for you. Remember that ultimately your destination doesn't lie on this earth. Keep in perspective what you're living for. College will drain you dry if you get caught up in the moment that this is all there is. It's this or nothing. It's not true. College is not the destination. And life will throw you curveballs. And every adult in this room can tell you that life will throw you curveballs. It's not going to go the way you planned. Life is not going to just simply fall into line. Life is going to be complicated. Whether you're 18 or 88 or 80 in an 18-year-old's body, life is complicated. And because life is complicated, it's easy to lose perspective. There will be days that are hard. There will be days where you feel like a failure. There will be days when you feel unworthy. There will be days when you just don't have any strength. But don't lose sight of where you're going. This world is not our home, and God has promised you that He is working everything in your life for the greater good to bring Him glory. So if you keep your eyes, as the song we played says, fix your eyes on who God is, it'll make everything else that happens around you just noise. When your heart is breaking, when your world is coming apart, when there's nothing left in the tank, fix your eyes because it's all just noise. The Israelites lost perspective. Not only did they lose perspective, they surrendered to fear. Fear is a dangerous thing. Fear is a dangerous, dangerous thing. Parents, we are probably guilty of giving into fear a lot. I know I am. Fear that something might happen to my child. Fear that something might go wrong in my raising of my child. And so sometimes out of fear, I may punish too harshly or speak too harshly. Sometimes out of fear, I might forget that my child is actually a person who is on a journey just like I was at one point in time in my life, who is struggling with understanding his or her place in this world and finally knowing why God has them here and why God wants them. As a teenager, I didn't understand what it was like to be wanted. My parents wanted me, but the outside my family unit, I felt very alone and very unwanted and unworthy. And I was afraid of being alone. I was afraid of being an outcast. I was afraid of not having someone who loved me or accepted me. And so I adapted who I was to what I thought that people outside the doors of my house and the doors of my church would want. And thank God that He allowed me to be protected in that I did a lot of stupid things, but not nearly as stupid as some people that I knew did. It was because I was afraid of what might happen, afraid of the unknown, afraid of not accomplishing my goals, that I succumbed to changing who I was and trying to play a game where I was one person one place and another person another place. As you go off to college, you go to college campus, there ain't going to be no teachers calling home to mom and dad. Ain't going to be nobody there checking in with your parents, make sure your grades are right, make sure you're attending, make sure that you're not causing trouble. You mess around at college, you're either going to get the police called or get kicked out of school, or both. And when you walk on those campuses, it is going to be just everywhere. The opportunity to walk away from your faith and to cling to anything else. And you're going to be afraid. I promise you, you will be afraid. No matter how great your support structure is, no matter how great your campus is, no matter how much you have built in and prepared yourself, you're going to be afraid. Be ready for it. Don't give in to it. When you're afraid, find someone. When the Israelites go to Aaron, I always find it interesting that Aaron, as the brother of Moses, the second in command, having seen and been a part of the inner circle from nearly the beginning, knowing what God had done, we don't even have recorded that he even objected. Not only did he not object, he was right on the ball with a plan. All right, you want some gods? All right, give me your stuff. Here's what I need. Like he had already had a plan on how he was going to make this happen. See, Aaron was a coward. He lost all courage and all ambition. Why do the hard work when it's easier just to go back to what we know? Why do the hard work? Why make the sacrifice when it's just as easy to go back to the ways of the heathen Egyptians? Why do the hard work and make sacrifices when I could just as easily step back and go with the flow? Being a Christian in this culture is hard. And if you stand for your principles, you think you stood out on your school campus for being a Christian, wait till you get to college. Paul says it like this. He says, I put behind me what is past, never looking back, and focus ahead, pressing onward to the prize. His ambition wasn't to just get by. His ambition wasn't just to stay put. His ambition wasn't to take the easy route. His ambition was to press forward. Always. The past is done. You can't go back to high school. You can't go back to middle school. Yes, it'd be nice to turn back time to the good old days. And you're going to be stressed out, but you can't go back. It's done. You can't change a thing that has happened in the last 18 years of your life. But what you can do is stand firm today and press forward. And that goes for every single adult in this room, whether you're a graduate or not. It doesn't matter what your past is. It doesn't matter what you've done to this point, good or bad. God is saying, what are you doing next? Because until you're here with me in heaven, then you're still not there. And you can just as easily go off the rails at 60 as you can 18. God's not done with any of you yet. And if you're sucking breath, God's got a reason for you being here. And you better remember that. Because the older we get, the easier it is to say, well, I'm just going to sit back. I've done enough. I'm through. I'm happy where I'm at with what I've done. And we lose ambition. God never says there's a time to retire. God never says, fill your spirit tank this full and be done. God says, get on the ball. I got work for you to do, and don't stop till you can't breathe anymore. Pastor Mark spoke a few weeks ago in his sermon. And I think that this is probably something that you as graduates, as nearly adults, have to cope with that I don't envy at all. One of the things that is the most alarming and saddening thing in our culture, as Mark said a few weeks ago, is the fact that no matter where, in our culture and all around the world, everywhere you go, everyone's looking for the same thing. There's, regardless of race, age, gender, finances, health, whatever. Everybody is looking for the same thing. And that's hope. Hope. One of the reasons people have surrendered to fear, one of the reasons people have lost their ambition, one of the reasons people have lost their perspective is they've lost hope. And we live in a culture where hope is fleeting. And it doesn't matter what your perspective on our culture is, whether you're taking it from a spiritual standpoint or a secular standpoint. Everyone is saying hope is lost. Take a look at our election cycle. You have people who are Christian leaders saying that if we don't do so-and-so or such and such, all hope is lost. If this happens, all hope is lost. If this happens, we might as well give up. If this happens, we don't know what's going to happen. And that's not coming from people outside the church. That's coming from people who are supposed to be solid Christians, leaders of the church, putting the alarms out that if we don't put X, Y, Z together and so doesn't sit in the White House or the governor's mansion or the Senate or the House of Representatives or wherever, that if we don't get those things together, then all hope is lost. And I don't know what it must be like to be in your shoes, looking at this culture that's so rapidly changing and hearing this proclamation from people that you are supposed to be leading you to the throne of God, that hope could be lost. Graduates, let me help you. Can I help you? This is yes. I just shake it so I can hear it rattle. Let me help you. It doesn't matter who's sitting in the White House. It could be Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. It could be Frank Underwood, Fitzgerald Grant, Santa Claus, or the Easter Bunny. I know who sits on the throne. That's what matters. I've got a few friends, and they know a thing about hope. Their name is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they all told me the same thing. They all told me that Jesus Christ came, He died, He buried, He rose again, and He's coming back again. And I've read the end of the book. I don't have to wait for Mr. Martin to release book number 6 so I know what happens next. There's an ending. And guess what? Graduates, guess what? We win. There is hope hope to be found. It's already been done. Jesus Christ paid the debt. Death has been defeated. Sin has no sting. Hell is done. Jesus Christ conquered it. So don't let anybody tell you that there's ever a time in your life where hope can't be found. We can elect a sock monkey this fall. There'd be hope. Hey, guess what? If the Antichrist came today, I have hope. This world is not my home. I don't belong here. God's got something better. I ain't sitting at the base of a mountain waiting for some golden calf to save me. The Israelites said that because they don't know where Moses is, they need something they can hold on to. You can hold on to this. When Moses came down the mountain, he confronted Aaron. And Aaron just made excuses. He just, I threw the gold, and they forced me to, and I threw it in there, and it just came out a golden calf. And it was interesting that they wanted something solid. They didn't go and elect another leader. They didn't seek someone they didn't ask Aaron to go to God on their behalf. They made a golden calf. They blamed Moses. They forgot all about what God did, gave no credit to what God had done for them, tossed him to the side, and grabbed a hold of something they could control. Ultimately, that's what they were doing. A golden calf, they can control. They can make it up as they go. This is our God. This is our God. We can hold it, we can touch it, we can see it, we can control it. As you leave to go to the next transition in your life, there will be days when things seem out of your control, and they are. Our human nature wants to grab things by the reins and take it where we want it. I was like that in college. Hopefully you are a little more mature than I was. My sole goal when I went into college was not to have God dictate anything about what I was going to do, but my sole goal was to make money and be better off financially than my parents were. That was my goal. I changed majors 6 times in 3 years because nothing made me happy. And not once did I ask God what he really wanted me to do in my life. Not once. And I wasted a lot of time. You can look around this room, and there's plenty of people in this room that have taken control away from God to pursue their own selfishness. And I am almost positive that every single one of those people would tell you, stop. Give it to God now, because it won't be worth it on the other side if you try to control it yourself. Moses had to beg God to not destroy the people of Israel. And God, because of Moses' petition, God changed. Scripture says God changed his mind, and he spared them. But he also had punishments. I want you to know this, that God is always there no matter what you do, where the path takes you, where you fall short. But understand this, that God's grace is about his relationship with you. It doesn't mean that he'll spare you the consequences of your actions. And what you decide for the next 4 years on how to build your life will not only impact you, but your future children and your future children's children. This is real life. Eventually, the people of Israel made it to their destination. Eventually, most of those who knew about the golden calf were gone. Eventually, they saw the promised land. They arrived. But for many, it was too late. If I had one message to tell you as graduates, it's that you're 18 years old. Give it to God now and enjoy the promises that he has for you now. Don't wait. Don't lose that.